I'll be the judge of that. Come on, you two, let me check. My children lifted up their clothes and exposed their wet diapers, both of them unfitting, as they had been forced to wear mine and my husband's diapers since they had run out of their own due to their illness. Okay, you two, now turn around, I stated hesitantly. I couldn't help but recall the past few days and the innumerable diaper changes that went with them. As they turned around and I could get a good look at the seat of their diapers, I was relieved. They were messy, but it wasn't what I feared. I quickly checked their foreheads, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I knew they were okay. See, Mama, we're better now, my older boy called out proudly. When do we get our diapers back? My little girl followed up. Tomorrow. I felt a little disappointed in myself as I answered, recalling the events of this morning. Oh, that's what you said yesterday. Mama, your diapers are too bulky and don't fit me right. My little girl pouted as she lifted up her dress and pointed at her diaper. Sorry they were out today, so you'll have to make do with them for a little bit longer. But what about you and Papa? My older son replied, concerned. Well, we don't go through diapers like you two do, so we'll be fine. I was happy to have such compassionate children. Either way, that's enough talk. Who wants to help me make dinner before Papa gets home? We do, they both exclaimed as they waddled off to the kitchen. Even as I stood there in my sodden diaper, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. I couldn't help but remember every diaper change, every late night, and every tear shed to get here. I was happy that my husband and I had managed to raise such good children. Regardless of the difficulties we faced, a little diaper rash was more than worth this. Mama, hurry up, Papa will be home soon. Coming, I responded as I began towards the kitchen. For some reason, I suddenly remembered the sad look on Mary's face as I left her apartment. It was then that I realized that I had forgotten what I was so envious about earlier. It took some time, but dinner was ready. As I finished setting the table, I could hear the door open and my husband walk in. As I felt my diaper, I could tell it was barely holding on. And I was relieved that soon I would be able to change. As my husband walked in, my children excitedly ran up to him. He looked very tired as he tried his best to give them both the attention they wanted. For a split second, he looked at me with a smile, and all I could do was look away upset. Regardless of my trip into the city today, we still didn't have more diapers. After a few seconds, I looked back up to see him still there talking with our children. But I could tell. I could see the disappointment in his face, the same disappointment that was currently on my own. Tonight, we will have to make do. Dinner was simple, not that we could complain. After all, it was all supplied by the state, all of it heavily preserved in a paste-like consistency and very bland. Even the fluids provided were placed in containers not to be reused and sealed shut, forcing us to suck the fluid out of a nipple placed on top. Yet it was hard to complain. After all, it was all provided to us, and was all supposed to be very nutritious. Dinner ended uneventfully with my children talking excitedly about returning back to school, and my husband discussing his day. Soon after that, my children's diapers were changed, my older son into his father's and my younger daughter into my own. As I tucked them into bed, I knew that only left us. I returned to my husband's and my room and locked the door. I could feel my face become flush as the shame of what we were about to do washed over me. As I turned around, I could see my husband lying on the changing mat on the bed, his legs dangling off the edge as he silently waited for me. I made my way over to the dresser to take out the contents of the first drawer when I suddenly felt myself hesitate. My eyes locked with the bottom drawer, and I could feel my hand instinctively open and close. As I continued to remain transfixed, I slowly opened the bottom drawer, gazing at its contents. My temptation continued to grow, until his voice snapped me out of my trance. You know. He paused as he continued in a solemn and hushed tone. If you wanted to, they wouldn't have to know. I know how much this bothers you, so please. Even if the chances are slim, put me in that and you can wear mine and won't have to risk getting into trouble. As I heard him utter those words, I knew what I must do, as I swiftly opened the top drawer to pull out his last large disposable diaper. As I approached him, I couldn't help but smile as I shook my head, causing him to smile as he looked away relieved. I am not sure how I managed to have married a man like him, but I knew there were few out there who could be as proud as I always was of him. I signaled my husband to raise his bottom as I slid the new diaper under him and began the task of cleaning him up. As I began to untape his diaper, my mind began to wander. This nation of ours was quite an interesting one, possessing large oil reserves. After the revolution, the new government worked to nationalize the oil reserves, resulting in US being the largest petroleum product-producing country in the world. While there are many questions about if our government is right to have done the things they have done, those concerns never really concerned me. As I think back to myself, my husband, and my children, I was never really affected by most of the changes brought upon by the new regime. But there was one law that as of late has started to affect me. Dear, I think that's enough. I suddenly felt myself snap back to reality. I realized I was in the process of creating a dust cloud, with the amount of baby powder I was applying to my husband. Oh, sorry, I was lost in thought. I could hear him stifle a chuckle as I finished pulling the front of his diaper up but left the tapes undone. I quickly laid next to my husband and got to work changing out of my own diaper. As I reached down to undo my tapes, I could see the contents of the bottom drawer staring back at me. It was filled with a gift from my mother many years ago, and one that was deemed illegal for use in our nation: many cloth diapers. As my tapes came off and I reached for the wipes, I could feel my mind wander once again. It was a law that was passed nearly 25 years ago when I was still in my teens. I couldn't help but recall the similarities of my own younger years, and that girl from this morning's supply line. Thinking about how much I have changed, I guess it was just a part of growing up. Back then, I remembered my family as fairly poor and myself as someone who wore cloth diapers regularly. I can still remember how I always wanted to try the expensive diapers from the West, the ones that you didn't need to wash, that you could run, not waddle in, ones that you could just change wherever you were, and didn't need to spend time washing. Disposable diapers felt like what I thought freedom was to me, and I promised myself that when I got the chance, I would spend my pocket money to try them out, just once. It is funny that I got my wish granted in the worst way possible. As I returned back to my senses, I quickly balled my diaper up and taped it shut before standing up. I swiftly approached my husband, now bare as a newborn, trying my best to make sure I didn't have an accident on the floor. I pulled the front of his diaper down and laid myself on top of him, now skin to skin. I could feel my body grow red hot as he reached forward and pulled the front of his diaper up and around my bottom, and snugly taped the two of us into the diaper. As I wiggled my legs and shook my hips, I only grew more embarrassed, as I realized my husband had become really good at taping a diaper like this. I wrapped my arms and legs around him as he slowly stood up. He slowly walked towards the center of the bed, yet I couldn't do anything but allow the shame to wash over me. Clinging to my husband like an infant, having him carry me on top of him, and sharing the same diaper with him. I wasn't able to get diapers for either of us nor my children. I couldn't help but feel useless. My husband slowly sat back down and lowered the both of us down at the head of the bed. Soon he was resting on a pillow, and I was resting on his chest before he raised his legs, and I once again found myself in this strange, degrading position. A position that we were placed into by that law they passed. Our government became a worldwide producer of petroleum products, and among those were the plastics used in diapers. Soon, our nation became one of the world's largest exporters of disposable diapers. This became an incredible boon for our nation, and soon there wasn't a nation left that didn't carry a diaper manufactured in our country. Then suddenly, 25 years ago, they banned the use of cloth diapers and swapped over to providing us with state-manufactured diapers. It was a little strange going, from bulky cloth to crinkly disposables, and soon the state began providing us with food and supplies, but we all grew used to it. To me back then, it felt like that was freedom, not having to worry about food or cleaning my own diapers. I felt as though this was a freedom that not even the Western capitalists could experience. I was really excited at the time, but others like my parents weren't. I was young and I thought they didn't understand, but only now do I realize what we gave up in exchange. Clinging to my husband, taped together in the last diaper left in our home, anxious over whether or not I will be able to get more diapers tomorrow. I now understood why my parents looked so distraught, and I understood why they left me so many cloth diapers. They may have been inconvenient, but at least they were mine. If I wanted to change, I could. If I wanted more absorbency, nothing could stop me from doing so. And if I wanted to be free to wake up in the morning and change into a fresh diaper, I had begun to realize today that even Mary wasn't as free as I thought she was, that no amount of wealth or power could return what we lost. Deep down, I knew we were slaves, unable to even change our own diapers for fear of consequences. I felt a pain grip me as my heart began to beat with anxiety. It was then that I realized what I was about to do. This was unfair. I could feel myself grunt reflexively as the diaper that I shared began to expand, and another warmth began to grow between me and my husband. This was truly unfair. I wanted more than anything to cry for what we lost, and for what was taken away from us. Yet I was unable to find any tears to do so. As I laid there in my anguish, I felt his warm hand rub my back as he quietly hummed. I was embarrassed, not because I had used our diaper, nor due to my husband's response to my discomfort, but over how quickly he was able to soothe me like I would soothe our children. In the end, we were just infants dependent on the state for our milk and diaper changes. We were nothing more than oversized babies. Even that girl this morning who wanted her diaper changed, crying out to the state for her adulthood back, only to be admonished like a child. I may wonder what it would be like to fight back and regain our freedom, but I don't think we could survive. We have all grown so infantilized, and I am not even sure how it ended up this way. It was strange to think that my children, my babies, would never grow up to know what a cloth diaper was, never being able to change their own diapers without the state's permission, and never knowing what being an adult was like. How life was when you didn't need the state for food and clean diapers when we weren't so hopelessly dependent. No, to them this is normal, and to their own children it will be even more normal. I could feel a sensation of serenity take over as I had come to once again accept the state's position. Almost as if my husband could tell my needs were fulfilled, he slowed down, and instead brought her arms around me, clutching me tightly as if I was a stuffed toy. I could hear his heart rise and fall as our diaper grew warmer, unsure which one of us was the cause. But I was happy that I could bring him comfort in my own way. As I gazed out the window, sleep slowly began to consume me, and I began to drift off as I began to cuddle closer to my husband, soothed by his slow heartbeat. Spokojnoj noci, Verona, my husband quietly spoke. Spokojnoj noci, I replied back softly as I drifted off to slumber.